And with us is Ellen Datlow. Ellen, welcome to Fast Forward.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your taking time out of the convention to join us here.
I'm delighted to do it.
Well, first off, 2005 has been one heck of a year for you. 2 Hugos. What else have you won this year?
I think Kelly Gavin and I got the Stoker.
Yeah, you got the Stoker. You
For
had,
your
I think, Very Real from one of your books has been winning a bunch of awards.
Yes, the Fairy Handbag by Kelly Link.
Yeah, and I understand that you have won, what is it, more
I
World
just remembered.
Fantasy?
Wait. The Locust Award. It's the first time I've ever won the Locust Award.
Oh, congratulations.
How could I forget? Yeah. Thank you.
And you've got now, I think, won more World Fantasy Awards.
Terry Winley and I are tied.
Yeah, that's
7.
amazing.
Neck and neck.
Yeah, well, you guys have worked together on a lot of the best of.
Most of them we've gotten for our collaborations, and we've gotten a couple on our own.
How does that work when you're collaborating on, particularly the best of books that you guys work on, and some of the other ones when you're collaborating on a short story collection?
Well, for the year's best, Terry's not working on the year's best anymore,
okay.
but she was up until 2 years ago. The way it works with the year's best is that we each were given a certain amount of wordage for our section. She or Kelly and Gavin were given 125,000 words, and I'm given 125,000 words. I always have done the horror, and Terry or now Kelly and Gavin do the fantasy. So, and occasionally we barely confer, but sometimes we'll say, well, this is really good, we really want it. I really want it, but I think it's fantasy as well as horror, and it's too long for me to take alone. You want to split the wordage kind of thing. But when Terry and I do our fantasy anthologies, any of them, Fairy Real, the fairy tale series, whatever, we both get the story, we both have to like the story and want it. It's rare. Once in a while, someone will like the story better than the other, and we'll usually go with the one who does like it. The only time we won't take a story is if someone hates it. In that case, we'll say, all right, we won't take that story. But Terry and I our tastes seem to dovetail very well with our collaborations. So we've never had any bad, any problems. So we usually do agree on everything.
And the other thing that you do is, of course, is fiction editor for sci-fi.com.
Yes, that's my actual day job.
I know, that's your, and I love the fact that you won best editor for an online magazine.
Yeah, well, I think it's hard to say what the best editor award is for. It's a combination, I think. The thing is, we did win best website or webzine. I'm not sure for the Hugo, and that we just beat out Locus Online by 1 point.
Wow.
1 vote apparently, and I think it's only the second time that website has been put as a category. I believe each individual WorldCon committee decides on a special category.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how it works, and
something like that.
I don't know how they decide if the category becomes permanent or not. So that was very gratifying. And actually, Sci-Fiction is up for the International Horror Guild Award, which I don't think we have a chance for because because the International Horror Guild Award obviously is aimed at horror. Yes, I publish horror stories, but it's mostly science fiction and fantasy. So I can't remember what we're up against, but I think it's going to be highly unlikely we're going to win that particular award. But it's really nice to be nominated for it.
Yeah. It's just, I find it fascinating that it's basically an online magazine, and it's got some of the best fiction getting published now.
Well, partly we have the money. I've been lucky that, and also, as far as I'm concerned, it's been something I've been doing since Omni went online, which was I forget 94. I'm not sure. I probably have one of the editors who has been doing online fiction for the longest period of time, certainly paying for it. And I had a lot of connections. Don't forget, I was working at Omni for 14 years, 15 years before it went online. So I had a lot of contacts from that. Starting any kind of new magazine or website, it takes a couple of years for people to trust you to even want to get regular writers to be sending you stuff regularly. And the people who, the real top writers, some of them don't want to be online. Some of them are hesitant to be in a new magazine because it may fail after 1 month. But if you can pay them, that helps a lot. People are more willing to take a chance on a new venue if you can pay them a decent rate. And at Sci-Fiction, we pay very well.
And I think the fact that you were there, because you have a reputation as.
I think that was part of it. You know, it would have been a lot more difficult to get it going into. I mean, it took a while for people to respect us anyway.
Right, because you were just
because it was online,
Yeah.
you know, and well, why should we read this? You know, Goddesses, which was a novella by Linda Nagata, was the first. It was put on the Nebula ballot by the Oversight Committee. I forget what it's called, Editions Jury or whatever. And I think, I'm not sure, I think it was the first piece of fiction that was ever put on by the jury that actually won. And to me, that kind of broke the logjam of people giving us respect. We had at Omni and Event Horizon, I had stories that were on the World Fantasy ballot that won the World Fantasy Award, but that's a judged award. So for a popular award, well, semi-popular, I mean, SEFWA versus, you know, a judged award, I think that was kind of what helped, whatever reason that happened, it helped the whole idea of the website.
Yeah, and one of the things I like about, you know, what's going on with what you're doing now is the range of what you're publishing in it. You've got, you know, Michael Swanwick's short stuff that you're doing. You've got Lucius Shepard. You got all these incredible writers.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, because I was never able to publish novellas before. Online, you can do that. I started doing it in Omni online when we were part of AOL, which was weird. I mean, that was just a whole weird thing. It wasn't quite online. That was kind of beginning the whole idea of a website, or webzine rather. So the idea of publishing novellas was great because I never had room at Omni to publish a novella, very rarely. I mean, I think Mephisto and Onyx may have been the only novella we ever published, and that took up a lot of space. In cyberspace, no one can hear you put fiction out. I mean, no one can, you know what I mean. It was really dumb, but you know, you get the idea. I mean, there is no problem about space.
Yeah.
You can.
There's plenty of pixels.
Yes, I mean the only problem, you know, we would pay up to, we pay by the word, but we pay up to a certain rate. But there's nothing stopping us from running a 39,000 word novella.
Yeah. So that's now. Let's talk about the process of doing this some, because I don't know that a lot of our viewers know that much about what a fiction editor does for you know, a print magazine or an online magazine. What does that entail? What do you do?
I'll try to make it brief. Some people might find it really boring, so I'll try to make it really fast. First, you read stories. You get stories by people you know. You get people who you've published before. You decide you want to buy a story. You put through a contract. I mean, all the technical. You know, you do the contract. I edit. I mean, most short story editors now actually do edit, and that's a line edit, and it's not the same thing as copy editing. Not the same thing as proofreading. It's basically going line by line over a story and seeing that everything's consistent, that the characters are right, and that's including substantive editing, which is also overall editing. Like, well, I think the structure's off. Now, a story for me to buy has to be almost there. I'm not, unless I know the author well enough that I know I'll be able to work a revision or two. I will not commit to buying a story until I think that the writer can actually pull it off. So anyway, I'll do the line edit, then it goes into production. And the thing is about the internet, I have to say, or email has helped editing quicken up the whole process. Even with Howard Waldron, who I know you just had on.
Yes.
Because he will accept contracts by email, because he's like, would you like your contract today, or would you like it in a week? You know, what would you like? You know, and can we do the edit online? I will send you the edit online, and you know, so you can answer me my questions now, so we don't have to wait 3 weeks, please, back and forth, and he'll do that. So I mean, so emailing back and forth is really helpful in editing. It may go through a revision or two, what is said, but once it's ready to go into production, it goes to the copy editor. And the copy editor online, he does it on Word. There's a program in Word that's an editing program, a tracking program. I go over his copy edit. I either reject or accept what he wants to do, mostly commas and punctuation. Some things I'll bring to the author. I'll say, the copy editor says this, I agree or I disagree. What do you think? I mean, and sometimes it's a substantive question like, or fact checking, or like, this doesn't make sense, or you've got 2 words here. So, I mean, copy editor basically picks up things that the author missed, picks up that I, the editor, missed, all right? And then once it's copy edited back and forth, it goes to my producer who, through the magic of technology, puts it on our web server, I guess, I don't know. And then my copy editor goes over it, she reads it on the web server, to make sure that all the that there are no typos, there's nothing that she notices is wrong, and that the coding is right too. My copy editor codes. He does it's simple HTML, so that goes to the producer, and then it goes live. The nice thing about online, of course, is if there's a real screw up, you can fix it, which is very nice. Because
you don't have to go to everyone's house and take the magazine.
Because I mean,
back.
invariably, in every publication, from book to magazine to webzine, there are errors. There always are. They just creep in one way or the other. Anyway, that's the boring part. But that's basically it. I mean, that's a quick and dirty, how something gets published.
That's very interesting, because I didn't know what the process was. But that might have been the boring part. Well, for you, what's the fun part?
I actually love editing. I love the actual process of editing, of working with an author. My job, I feel, as an editor, is to help the author bring out what he or she intends the story to say. And that may entail saying, I don't understand. This actually happened with a new writer, a newer writer whose story, he obviously had built this whole world up in his own mind, this alternate history. And it wasn't on the paper, though. It wasn't there, not all of it. And I said, why does this happen? Why does that happen? And he said, oh, blah, 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 blah. I said, oh, well, that's interesting. Obviously, you worked this out in your head, but it's not there. It's not on the paper. Can you put in enough? And this is someone, since I didn't work with before, I didn't commit to buying the story because I was afraid, I don't know if he can do it. He's only published a few stories. He may really screw it up. So I said, I can't commit to buying the story. Can you fix that? And he did, very deftly, with only a few things. He didn't put in the entire world he created, but put in enough to give the flavor to let the reader understand. And that's my job, the most fun, when you can do that and help the writer make a great story, a really good story, a great story. So that's the fun part. And of course, just finding new writers. Yeah. And in the last 2 or 3 years at Sci-Fiction, I think I've published more first stories than I ever had. I don't think I ever published a first story, maybe once in Omni. Oh, I did, well, of course, Ted Chiang's, but hardly ever. Usually it may have been second or third stories, but I found more first stories by accident. And don't ask me who, I can't remember.
I was wondering if there are any new writers whose work you've seen that people may not be aware of.
Oh, there are
right
a
now
bunch of new writers who I'm
recommend.
publishing, who I'm really happy with. The person I was talking about was Jason Stoddard. And the story Panacea is an alternate history with Thomas Alva Edison as one of the main characters. And it's just really interesting. And it's about an immortality drug and the effect it has on the world.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. Laird Barron, who Gordon has published, probably first, Gordon Van Gelder. But I've been publishing some of his stories, and he writes terrific, very dark, sometimes Cthulhu, but not always. Excuse me.
All right.
Elizabeth Bear, who is known for her fantasy, apparently, her novels. But she's been writing some excellent, really beautiful stories for me, short stories that I really like.
She's good.
Yeah, but her short stories apparently are not at all like her novels. I have not read her novels, but I gather that they're, I don't know if they're high fantasy, but they're fantasy.
I think so, yeah.
Some of the stories she's been writing for me have been dark. Yeah, I mean, she wrote a lovely Cthulhu, a Lovecraftian love story, which was just lovely.
Oh, how sweet.
And a father, and another one that was really recent, which was a father-son story with Cthulhu overtones or undertones. Or maybe it was Frank Belknap Long, and that was very good too. Oh, who else? Catherine Tobler. Elise Catherine Tobler is writing some beautiful stuff, and I'm losing my voice.
If you knew somebody that was thinking of going into editing, what kind of advice would you give them?
Oh boy, I don't know. Move to New York. I mean, it depends on whether you want to be a professional editor or not. Be sure you really want to do it. I mean, know what editing entails. When I decided I wanted to be an editor, I think I had no idea what editing meant. I got into book publishing first, and I was in book publishing for about 5 years, and I took an editing course, which was not something that really you can be taught. It's more an overall idea of what editing entails, and more in publishing. I don't know. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. It's like,
no one ever asked me. I have no idea what advice to give.
Just learn it.
It's learning on the job. I'm still learning on the job. It's a process, an ongoing process, learning how to edit and edit better. And pay attention to your writer. Do not tell them they have to do this or that. It's their story. It's their fiction. I think an advantage of me not being a writer is that I don't have a writerly point of view. I don't have an idea of how a story should be told other than how the author is telling it. And so I just want them to make it better. I don't rewrite it for them. I can't rewrite it for them. And I think that's a good thing. Be clear as to whether you want to be an editor or a writer. You cannot, I mean, there are very good editors who are writers and writers who are editors, but make sure you're doing one or the other and not both at the same time, or you're going to hurt your writer. You're not going to do good by the magazine or website you're working on. I mean, you have to be sure of what you're doing in that sense. If you have your writer hat on or your editor hat.
That's very good advice. So you came to it out of the publishing business.
Out of book publishing, kind of. Although I always wanted to work with books. I loved reading. And when I was a kid, I thought, oh, I'll work in a bookstore. That's a great job. Luckily, I never did, or I would have been starving. And I graduated as a lit major. I have no idea really why I wanted to go into publishing or how I even knew what it meant. I barely knew what it meant. My first job was at Little Brown and Company, the New York office, and I was sales secretary. At that time, Little Brown actually had a full-time reader, someone who read the slush. And because she was overworked with really bad slush, I read sometimes for her. You know, I helped her out. And then my next job was an editorial assistant at a company called Charterhouse, which went under after 3 months. But I mean, I had very bad luck in book publishing for about 5 years, and it was always mainstream book publishing. I was a science fiction and fantasy reader and horror reader my whole life, but I didn't want to be pigeonholed. So I just deliberately decided not to go after a job in a science fiction book publisher. I did not know science fiction magazines existed because I read anthologies and collections. I read Dangerous Visions, Last Dangerous Visions, the Best of the Year anthologies, all kinds of collections, Harlan Ellison, Ray Bradbury. I never realized that these came out of magazines. And the last thing, I guess, is my father had a luncheonette, but he didn't have science fiction magazines. He had comic books, dirty books, lots of the creepy comic books that I loved, but he did not have science fiction magazines. I have no idea why. It was a different distributor or something. So I didn't know they existed. So it was until I don't even know when I found out. I mean, obviously, I had to have found out eventually.
You found out sometime because you're kind of at the top of it now.
Yes, yes, and I love it.
Yeah, well, and that's glad. We love having you here, and I'm afraid we've run out of time.
I know. I talked as fast as I could.
And it was fascinating, and I thank you so much for being here.
You're very welcome. It's been fun.
And had a great time.
And we'll do it again sometime.
Oh, anytime. And so, from all of us here at Fast Forward, this is Mike Zipser saying, take care.
Well, that's it. See you soon.